What is up, everybody? Bobby here, the Nintendo Guru, and today, man, we got some theories, and I want to work through said theories. You guys have been asking me some amazing questions, so I want to talk about that and show some points that you guys made on the last video that I did. So, let's go. Okay, so I figured I would do it this way for a little bit, give you guys something to watch in the background as I'm talking and such. So we'll have the Nintendo Direct, the Animal Crossing Direct, playing in the background as I speak, and so we'll just break through it. So, man, I want to go through a lot of stuff that you guys have thrown at me this week. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the store, right? So I showed you guys a picture of the store, and I was basically throwing it out that it could be retail, it could be, it could be the Roost and stuff. But essentially, I had 3 comments on my last video that kind of absolutely changed my mind on all of this. So let's go through. I'm going to go through these 3 comments real quick. So the first one was from Void A, and he says that store could be retail because there's a poster board out front. And in New Leaf, it was used to show the player the deals going on for the day and what the item was, the deal of the day that you sold that would be a high-value item. And no other store has had that poster board outside of it. So that, at first, I thought, like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, that's possible. Pretty good. Pretty good, Voida. You nailed it. And then I got Tyler Joe came in right almost after him and said, if you look at Nook's Cranny and compare the store with the Halloween decoration store, they both have a drop box out front. So when you look, you can see there is a drop box that very much looks just like the one in front of Nook's Cranny. And then the final one that I got was from JoJo, and he's saying that Nook's Cranny sells plants now. If you didn't notice in the Direct, the part where they open up the cabinet so as a Halloween design shop is probably just Nook's Cranny. And if you look at when they go into Nook's Cranny in the video and they open up the cabinet, essentially, there's all kinds of seeds and there's actually rolls of wallpaper and flooring right in there that are identical to the ones that are out front. So the thing is, though, is this store doesn't look like the typical Nook store. Like, typically you have Nook's Cranny, then you have Nook and Go. I believe there's 4 iterations, if I'm not mistaken. And the final one is Nookington's. And I think the other one's Nook Junction. I forget. They changed the names of the middle stores as the progressions went through. So on the top of my head, I can't really remember. But that's neither here nor there. So I think that this probably is just an iteration of the Nook store where we're looking at here. And that is a little discouraging because I really want either retail or the Roost to come back. And I mean, let's be honest, the Roost will hopefully happen at some point because that's where KK Slider comes in and sings on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. So it makes you wonder, like, where's KK at pre the Roost? If you remember in the original GameCube version, Population Growing, he actually used to be at the train station. He'd be out front on a log and just singing right there, and that's where you would go up and talk to him. So is that something that's going to happen where he's just going to be randomly somewhere in the woods hanging out playing music? It's very interesting, and it's hard to say exactly what it's going to be, but as information moves forward, we'll see exactly where it goes. The next comment that I got was from Hanny Nanny. Crushed it. Shine spots are back. 9:19 on the Nintendo Direct video. On the left-hand side in the Direct, you can see a glowing fossil crack like the old shine spots that used to be used in the GameCube version. And the way, also she talks about the way Blather's voices is echoing in the museum in that last video I did. So here's the thing. Shine spots, for those who don't know, that was something that happened in the original GameCube. You would go and you would dig up a shine spot. And then typically there was money in the shine spot. Now you could do a couple of things. You could bury the money again and hopefully get a money tree, but that was whatever. And then the other thing was gold tools. You could throw your shovel back in the hole, bury it, and then come back a couple days later and dig it back up, and it would be a gold shovel. So that was pretty cool that you could do that and create that. So it makes me wonder, what other tools can you throw in? Is that going to be the way that this thing is utilized moving forward? So I guess we'll see. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. A couple other things I want to talk about was, I watched a couple of videos of YouTube, and one thing that's getting pointed out, which I think is very unique to this, is in essentially all of the video footage, you're seeing different characters utilizing different tools. There's a new commercial that just came out, and it's from Nintendo. It's on Nintendo's YouTube page, where it shows like animals using a rake in the background, and animals eating ice cream, and all this different stuff. Animals fishing. But the one thing that it shows for sure is it shows Daisy watering plants. Now, the one thing that comes up that people are saying is like, hey, in New Leaf they never did this. That is not true. You would see animals walking around with watering cans, and in those watering cans they would make or pour water. You wouldn't see them do it, but if you saw an animal in a particular area and then you went back later, what you would notice is you would see that they would, the flowers in that area, one or two off, would be sparkling. Sparkling flowers in Animal Crossing means that the flowers have been watered. This was a system they came up with because here's the thing: if you had a lot of flowers, you have to water these flowers every day, or they could potentially die. This was a way to let you know, like, hey, you did water these flowers, because as you went by, they would be sparkling. So in New Leaf, the animals would water your flowers. Granted, you wouldn't necessarily see them doing it, and I could be wrong on that factor. Maybe you could see them. I just don't remember ever seeing them watering. But I did know that you would go back later and you would see certain areas twinkling and stuff. A couple other things that we've noticed as time progresses. The Dodo Airport. It comes in multiple colors. We're seeing now it comes in that we know green, blue, yellow. I'm assuming red would be the third color. And that's the one thing that, like, when people see the Dodo area, it's more customization. It's the ability. But I'm curious, like, how you get that color to begin with. And is it something that I can go up there and change at any given time? It's pretty cool that we have all different colors and stuff. Like, it's almost like the train station where you could get different types of train stations and different type of gates as time progressed and moved on throughout the different iterations of Animal Crossing. One other thing that we are noticing here that I want to talk about is Amiibo. I personally, this is just a theory that I have, I don't believe that Amiibo will be available at the start of the game. In my estimation, because I'm looking at the terminal use, when they use the terminal in the tent originally, right? When they go into that and they use that terminal, it never brings up anything about Amiibo. But then later on in the game, when they use the terminal in the town hall where Isabelle is there, that's when they go up and they use the terminal and it activates Amiibo. So I'm wondering if A, there's just not a function, you just go up and then you just tap and it comes through, or do you have to actually unlock town hall to then unlock Amiibo, which, hey man, I'm all for. I really am all for. But also the other thing too is, I also wonder if that's not the case. If you have to unlock the campsite. So the campsite, it gets built, it's one of these residential areas that they showed during the Direct, when they showed along with the Able Sisters and Nook's Cranny and the museum and all these different things. But that's the one thing that they show is the campsite, right? So they show the campsite and it makes you think, but they show the campsite. That's one of those things that I believe. So my theory is one of two things. Either you have to unlock Town Hall or you have to unlock the campsite in order to then scan the Amiibo cards, bring the villager to the tent. Then you can go in and talk to them in the tent. And I believe as long as your town isn't full, you can get them to come in, or you just basically kick someone else out if you want to. Speaking of unlockable, I got one more question on my last video in my comments. This comes from Crow's Inspector. One thing though, do you reckon that we'll have to build the museum retail tailors ourselves, or do you think they'll become available automatically from the start or through other means later on? The natural flow of the game leads me to believe that it's the former, and that we'll be able to build these institutions and shops on our own, give materials, and they'll appear perhaps. But I know a few folks who believe that perhaps they're available from the start and they'll appear through an in-game milestone. So I don't believe that any of that stuff is available at the jump. I think that it's one of these things where you have to unlock by getting so far within the game, maybe by utilizing Nook Miles or accumulating Nook Miles, and when you pay off your debt for the trip, maybe it starts to be this thing. I'm not really 100% sure, but I just don't believe that day one they're there and you just get them. They talk about it in the direct that you have to build these things and over time. So I don't know that it would be like maybe just an area there. And I also don't know if they just appear. I think you might have to like get materials and build it per se. So I hope that's the case. It would be kind of cool to be like, hey, get me 500 block, 50 pieces of wood or whatever, and you can build a museum. Like that would be kind of cool if we kind of have to give materials in order to build whatever it is that we want. Like that would be, to me, a step up and something interesting to say, like, you have to progress. You have to do these things in order to get these other things. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I have. Oh, this is the other thing. So this was kind of interesting to me. This was really interesting to me. So when you look at the one point when they talk about how you can edit and change up different furniture, right? They show the textures. They show the textures that you make, the designer textures, right? And in it is the palm tree with the sun in the background. Real janky, real off, right? But then when you look at it actually used on the bench, everything's smoothed out. So it makes me wonder, are we going to have the ability to either keep it a pixelated look, or are we going to be able to click like something to make it anti-analyze and round off the edges? Which then takes me a step further and goes, this becomes very exciting when you have the fact of, like, if you remember the paths, there's an editor mode. So now, can we, which I'm pretty sure we'll be able to create our own paths to add to that customization, will it round it out and smooth it to make these paths that we're making just that much better? It's very interesting. I got to tell you, man, I'm as more of this stuff becomes unlocked and we start to see more of it, it gets more and more exciting for me. The final thing we're going to wrap up with before we shut this all down today is this. The Postal Service. In the past, we always had the post office. Pelly and Pete were a part of that. This is definitely not happening right away. I don't know if this is something we can unlock, because we do have mailboxes in front of our houses. But the thing is that if you go to the Dodo airport, that's where you can buy the stationery in order to mail out letters to the different villagers and your friends. This has never been done before. We've always had to go to the post office to do these things. So when I look at this, I go, man, this might be another character or set of characters that are kind of gone and no longer a part of this game or this franchise. I hope that that's not the case. I would love it if, like, Pete would show up on time to time and deliver mail. But I also love Pelly and Phyllis. Like, I think that they are great characters, and it'd be such a shame to lose them. Well, I'm sure we're going to hear more about this moving forward as people get the opportunity to talk to Nintendo and ask them. So we'll see. So for now, that's all I have for today, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, please slap the like button down below. Share it with all your friends. Please, please, please. I can't stress that enough. Follow me, Instagram, Twitter, and on Twitch at Nintendo Gurus. If you follow me at Twitch, you get entered into a giveaway for the Animal Crossing console. You guys want a shot? That's your way. Go follow me over on Twitch. That is all. Peace out, Preston.